Recording.
All right, you're with Jim Carty of the Patch of Southeastern Connecticut, and I am here with Gray Sargent. And Gray is coming to the Side Door Jazz Club in Old Lyme, September 8th, 2023. We're super excited to have you come down to Southeastern Connecticut there, Gray.
Hey, I'm really looking forward to it. I've heard a lot about this club. It's a beautiful sounding place and a lot
It's
of
a
great.
beautiful room. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Super sound, super staging, educated audience. I mean, everything you really want when you play out.
Mhm.
So yeah. Now, I think we were talking offline, and you told me that you were reflecting on the loss of Tony Bennett, your boss for over 20 years, and your friend, obviously, and you were thinking back at some moments that you hadn't, reflected on in a good while. Can you tell me what you've been thinking about over the last several days?
Well, yeah, a lot of really quick little memories. Some old, just some little bits on stage. So many great moments, and
Yeah.
just some other little things he said to me off stage or when we'd be in the dressing room with all the guys. Some band dinners. He was very generous. He took us out a lot for
Yeah.
dinner. Yes, I mean, it's just a long time. It was like 22 and a half years. So it's a lot of memories come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to talk about one or two specific ones that you thought about that would be a nice story to share?
Uh, well, let's see. Only some unusual ones. I mean, we ended up playing all kinds of things because of Tony Bennett. I mean, just all these wild private things that
I
you wouldn't,
bet.
yeah, that you wouldn't be doing if you were, on the road with a jazz band, like playing clubs all the time.
Right.
Just a lot of unusual. The one that stood out was the playing of the Queens. It was the 50th anniversary of her coronation.
Wow.
At the Buckingham Palace, and they had all kinds of people there. Paul McCartney and Eric Clapton, and the Queen came out on stage, and waved to all the performers. And the band, we had a great little 5 minute thing. We just happened to be standing kind of in a group, and George Martin came over.
Wow.
And yeah, so we had about 5 minutes with him. There were a lot of little moments like that, just things you do where you'd end up, meeting somebody you really admired. Well, another one that stands out, not long before the end of the gig, it was Tony's 90th birthday, which they had at the Rainbow Room.
Mm.
That was another one that Paul McCartney was at. He was up listening to us, that we were just that one in the background. It wasn't like a show with Tony. The quartet just played tunes for like dinner. So he was there, and Stevie Wonder and Martin Scorsese.
Wow.
And sitting right at the front table, and he was turned around in the seat, really listening. I could see it was Harry Belafonte, and I always really admired him, obviously for a lot of things,
Yeah.
So I could. He was talking to someone for a long time. I never go over and interrupt somebody, talking. Actually, had that happen a lot with Tony. I'd be standing talking with him, and somebody comes up, "Hey, remember Buffalo, 1951?"
Actually, no.
But I just kind of waited, and I just went over for a while, and he was so gracious. He really been listening, pays nice compliments to the band, and I got to tell him what a big fan I was of his, both on and as much or more off the bandstand.
Right.
Civil rights stuff, and he and Tony were very close.
Oh, they were.
Oh yeah, kind of came up together musically down, like both kind of like in the Village.
Yeah.
And Harry was studying, I think, more acting. And I read there was a tribute to Lester Young. Somebody sent me. Lester's one of them. And I never knew it. Harry Belafonte, he was in the theater when G.I. Bill. studying theater, and he said there was a bar a lot of the actors would hang out at and musicians, and he'd see Lester Young there a lot over in the
Wow.
corner, and he talked with him a little. And so he had told Lester he was going to be in a play at some point. And now it was months later. And I guess Harry was going to, he said, nah, he said, this isn't going to make it for me. You know, I'm going to drop out of this. And he was saying this to Lester. And Lester said, well, why don't you try singing? And I guess he had sung a tune or two in the play.
Mm-hmm.
And Harry said, well, I don't have you know. And Lester said, yeah, I came and saw your play a couple of months ago. He said, you sing?
Far out.
Yeah, and that was for him starting to sing. It's pretty
Yeah.
wild.
I was always amazed by Lester Young in Around Midnight myself. I'm a Lester Young fan too, and you know, for him to have acted so amazingly in his first film in Round Midnight was shocking. Don't you
Well, it was Dexter Gordon and
or Dexter? No, that yeah, you're right, Dexter. That was
oh,
Dexter. Forgive me. Yeah, that is
yeah,
Dexter Gordon.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
senior moment.
well, no, because he was very. It's funny because that movie is really as much about Bud Powell
Right. I
as
remember
less.
that.
Yeah, that's kind of the story of Bud, the French guy who really like took care of him over there.
Yeah.
But Dexter is really acting, and he idolized Lester,
Yeah.
and he's really acting more and talking like Lester, you know.
Right. And I remember Dexter Gordon saying, well, you know, it wasn't a stretch because this is essentially my story too.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
the addiction and the, you know, the hard scrabble life and all that, you know.
Hmm.
It's not always glamorous being on the road, is it, Greg?
Well, no, but it was. I mean, traveling and stuff, but it wasn't like with those guys.
No,
Went.
no. Well, I'm sure it was night and day. I mean, but even when you're doing fairly well in a smaller idiom like jazz, um, you know, unless you're the upper echelon, like, you know, in a Tony Bennett orchestra, you know, it can be pretty wearing because the
Oh
travel
yeah,
is, you know, top notch and all that.
oh yeah, yeah. No, I did the other kind of traveling too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Enough of
gets
that, right?
yeah, that gets tiring. But those guys, I mean, that's a whole other thing with the racism, what they
Oh,
went through. I mean, just on a day-to-day basis, even finding places to stay, you know.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just outrageous. And what amazes me too is all those I got to play with a lot of those before Tony. I played with Illinois Jaquette for a long time.
One of my favorites. Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of different guys, you know, house band guys coming through town or at jazz parties. And it's just amazing how many of them were just like so gracious and
Mm.
welcoming. You know, it didn't matter if you were black or white, you know, if
Yeah.
you could play. And when you think about like some of the stuff these guys went through, you know, but Joe Jones was like that. I got to play with, and Roy
Hmm.
Eldridge and Illinois, and they were all just like, yeah, man, come on up and play, you know.
That's
It's
so
just
great.
it's just amazing. I mean, all the stuff they went through.
I remember interviewing Irma Thomas years ago, and Soul Queen of New Orleans, of course, and she told me she had to be a shade tree mechanic, essentially. You know, she put the band in her station wagon as they went through Jim Crow South,
Yeah,
and she said no one would repair my car. I carried fan belts and, you know, maybe a used alternator or whatever the heck I thought might go on the car,
yeah,
and she says I could fix it because I had no choice, and I was the band leader.
yeah.
I
That's
mean, I
real.
can't even imagine, you know?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah, the Green Book stuff. It was
Yeah.
actually, yeah, just saw a great. Well, there was that the movie with Viggo Mortensen a while ago about Don, the black organist pianist who went down south and
Mhm.
took this guy with him. He was a bouncer from the Copacabana.
Right.
To,
The Green, yeah.
yeah, true story. It's just amazing. But they had, and there was a special my wife and I just saw that was excellent on the Green Book. And it was a book, and it listed every, like where they could eat, you
Hmm.
know, yeah, get clothes cleaned, where you could stay. And the drummer who was with us with Tony for the last 15 years was on that show. He's one of the guys being interviewed, Harold Jones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's,
But
yeah, you know,
it's-
interviewing a lot of these guys in blues and jazz over the years, I've heard that, you know, guys like Bobby Rush who are older told me about that. You know, he's this building in Jackson, Mississippi. You wouldn't, you know, James Brown stayed there and so on and so, you know, and Martin Luther King would stay there as well. He had nowhere else to go, just like
yeah,
JB and everybody else.
yeah.
It's very shocking stuff, what's in our history, unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
You
And it
know, the
wasn't.
bandstand is where we could come together very early in that period, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and it wasn't just down south either. It was like
Mhm.
Las Vegas and everywhere. You know, all those bands stayed like literally. There was a hotel on the other side of the tracks. You know, and
Yeah.
they couldn't fraternize. You know, Ella. I mean, they only had the biggest names in them. They'd have like Duke and Ella and Louis Armstrong, but they
Mhm.
couldn't hang out with anybody out in the audience. You know, they
Yeah.
just had the dressing room stocked with food and booze and whatever, but they couldn't sit at the bar with someone or.
Yeah. I'm no Ahmed Erdogan. I didn't start going to Harlem, you know, way back in the early days, not signing people, but you know, I would go up to Harlem to see the Harlem Big Band at Wells's Fried Chicken and in the 90s. And you know, it was just an amazing experience. And I remember the first time I got up there, I was stuck. You know, the cab stopped running. And the barman said, "Well, you know, you got to come to me. I have a beeper, you know, or a guy, gypsy cabs that have beepers." And he says, "What you do is you come to any barman, and we'll get a guy on the beeper, and he'll come get you." I'm like, "All right, that's kind of a good system, you
Yeah.
know." But
Wow.
you know, yeah, you just think about these funny things when you're out and about.
Yeah.
But tell me about how you started with Tony. I told you I was talking to Marshall Wood's wife, Donna, over the last day or so. Nice lady. And
Oh,
she was saying that she had something to do to introduce you lads to Tony. So tell me that story because I think it's kind of cool.
yeah. Well, she's a fantastic singer. And
Yes, yes.
yeah, married to Marshall. Now, Marshall, I had played with Marshall for years around
Hmm.
here before I joined Tony. And then 12 years into my time, Marshall joined Tony.
Hmm.
And going on for another 11 years. And we never knew Tony was going to go till like 93 or 4, whatever it was. Um, but I used to work with Donna a lot. And we were playing, let's see, we were playing somewhere here in Boston, a club called Scullers. Oh, and now Tony had heard Donna, I think at a private party or somewhere on with Dave McKenna, one of the
Nice.
great all time. And Tony loved Dave, and I think Dave kind of orchestrated having Donna to come up and sit in, you know, sing a couple because he wanted to
Hmm.
hear her. And Tony loved the way she sang, and it worked out. He came in like 3 times within about 6 months. I think he just happened to be in Boston the first time, and then we had a gig at the Blue Note, just a one night thing in New York. He came
Yeah.
with us, and then about 6 months later, he came on his birthday to Tavern on the Green. We were
Mm.
playing there. And he came over to me that night. He was very complimentary. We talked for a while, you know, and that was it. And then like 2 years later, I was just, no, I wasn't sick. No, I'd gone out for a little walk and I came back and there was a message. Uh, Tony's road manager at the time was from England, the British. So
Mhm.
it was the British accent saying, "Well, I'm Tony Bennett's road manager. Give me a call, you know, when you get a chance." I was like, "Well, what is
I'll do
this?"
that.
And I called him back, and he said, "Well," and it was almost exactly 2 years from when he'd come in. It was like the end of July, 2 years later, and he said, "Yeah, Tony's been talking about for 2 years now about adding the guitar to the band. Could you join us next Wednesday?" It was like 6 days from then or something. And I said, "Wow," you know, and he said, you know, he said, "Yeah, we'll both, you know, see how you like it, how Tony, how we like it." And obviously, I mean, I had some gigs around here that month and the next, they were fine. You know, I just go home for those gigs. But yeah, and everybody loved it. And I just stayed.
And I can't imagine Tony's sound, with me being what my age is, without your guitar. You know what I mean? It's just part and parcel of his sound to me.
Yeah, well, thanks. But yeah, I mean, he didn't have it before that.
Yeah,
There was a short stretch. I'd have to check too. I'm trying to remember if he had guitar and piano then, or just guitar, bass, and drums. But he had Chuck Wayne, great guitar player,
hmm,
for a while, a little bit in the '50s, music director. But
yeah.
I'm trying to remember if it was a quartet or. But then, of course, it was, yeah. What would that have been? Then for 40 years, maybe. After that, it was, piano trio.
Much more traditional to go
Yeah,
with the keys as the main instrument. I
yeah.
tell you, there was one night he didn't need anything. Maybe you remember this, or maybe he did it frequently. Lowell Memorial Auditorium, I saw him. He went out front, band was totally down, and he said, I love these old rooms, they're built for sound, I'm going to show you how so. And he sang without the microphone, and I was in the cheap seats, and I could hear Tony's voice like a bell, and
Hmm.
it was a beautiful moment,
Yeah,
and it was just so cool.
yeah. Unbelievable. He did that. Actually, that was almost every night.
Yeah,
As Yeah, as long as we were in a nice theater. Sometimes we'd be in a casino, and
that wouldn't
sometimes they have
fly. Yeah,
a nice music room, but sometimes it's more like an airport hangar with a bunch of seats.
right.
So it wasn't possible. But most of the time, you can tell looking at a room, or he'd come in and he'd just let out one, like, pop, see if it echoed. And then, yeah, that was almost every night. He'd come out, he'd put the mic on the piano, and I'd come down and he'd do Fly Me to the Moon with no mic.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it really was something. Let me, the words here, let me sing, interview, let me sing forevermore.
It's up on the computer
Oh, okay.
if you want that.
All
we're
right.
fine on it is on the computer, but we're fine like this, Greg. It's
Oh,
the same
okay.
thing. Yeah,
I didn't know it was
but thank you, Pam.
no,
It
no.
sounded good. Yeah.
All right.
So I don't want to neglect talking about what you, Marshall, and Les Harris Jr. are going to bring to the side door. So tell me about what you guys do as a trio together, and if there's a master plan, let me know what's up a little bit.
No, actually, there's no master plan.
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty. Now, a gig like that, a concert or something, I'll have like I'll make up a little set list to go by, but it might not be the actual set list. It's
Yeah.
just to prevent me from, finishing a tune. Then you sit there, geez, geez, what should we play now?
Right.
So I have a basic thing, but most of the time now, obviously, with Tony, that was different. That was Tony's show. You had a set list. But when I do the thing, I kind of never know what I'm going to play until I get there. Could be something somebody says that day earlier, or something that like sparks something, or
Hmm.
you know. So I'll have like a certain list to pick from, but then I might, as we start, that might lead me to something else and goes into a medley, and so it's kind of loose.
Yeah. Now I know that my YouTube channel, where this will appear, has a lot of guitar enthusiasts, and I listen to you and I think Joe Pass, Herb Ellis, and tone is important to you guitarists, phrasing.
Mhm.
Where are you drawing from? The Barney Kessels of the world? You tell me. I mean, I'm just naming some of what I'm hearing a little bit in my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. Well, let's see. My biggest, I think, probably the biggest guitar influence, um, not as much, I think, as when I first started, would be Kenny Burrell.
Love Kenny.
Yeah, and just turned 92 the other day,
And
and
working on his memoir. I actually was going to mention this to you because we were going to look back on what you had done with Tony, and just today I had looked back on how Kenny was doing after his GoFundMe and his health
Mhm.
issues. And he was talking about how he was working on his memoirs, and then Jerry Jamont, great bass player, a friend of mine, is also working on his memoirs. He was with King Curtis and Aretha.
Hmm.
So it's I was actually thinking of Kenny today. It's really great that you
Hmm.
named Kenny.
No, he's a beautiful. I've known him since I was 15.
Really?
And
Wow.
yeah, Illinois Chiquette too. We had this legendary. My brother was a couple years older than me, so he was driving already. And we used to go there all the time. Lenny's on the Turnpike, and it
Rocket
turned.
George Lay told me he played with you. What was it, Lenny's or Sandy's or something? One of those places.
Who?
Rocket George Lay, I think, told me that he thought he had
Oh yeah, oh
played
yeah.
with you
Sandy's.
at Sandy's.
Yeah,
Sandy's. I wasn't sure if it was Lenny's or Sandy's.
yeah. Lenny's was a little before that.
Yeah.
Just a fantastic. I mean, he had everybody there week after week with Sunday matinees. And, we were too young to drink, but just come in, he just let everybody in. He always used to put me right in front of the guitar player. So I'd
Nice.
be like 3 feet in front of B.B. King, Muddy Waters, Kenny, Illinois Chiquette right in front of the bell of his horn. That's where I met Illinois, and then ended up working with him later. But Kenny, these guys would notice this because it was kind of lean. This was like the late '60s, and I remember going there weeknights. It'd be like 15 people,
Ouch. Yeah. Now,
And
a lot of my friends who are your age have told me that they've gone to uh, children matinees with BB King and Muddy Waters and those people. Had you ever gone to something like that?
well, no, I mean they let us. We went in at night. We
You
were
went
too
in
young,
anyway.
to drink,
Yeah.
but they let us in. But he did have matinees. It was great.
Yeah.
Um, but he had, oh my God, he'd have like Muddy Waters, and the next week would be Monk, and
Mm.
then Sonny Stitt, and then Kenny, and he had big bands. We saw Count Basie in this little roadhouse,
Wow.
like yeah, it was just a great place. But Kenny would start to notice, same with Illinois, like, hey, here are these 3 kids again. We'd be there 3 or 4 days, and then he'd see us in New York. Hey, you guys, like,
Popped up again.
yeah. So I've known him for a long time, and it's funny, and kind of a somewhat mutual history with Illinois. He sat in when he was very young with Illinois, and
Mhm.
Illinois wanted to take him on the road, and his mother wouldn't let him go, Kenny.
That's
And
wild.
yeah, and then he made several records, like 3, 4, maybe 5 later on with them. And then I wasn't quite that young, but I was about 22 when I sat in with him, and then he hired me. And then Kenny came much later. He saw me go with Illinois, and then he came to 3 or 4 shows of Tony's, and came back to the dressing room. Was very complimentary. He's just a beautiful guy.
I'm sure you encountered Ron Levy at some point.
Oh yeah,
So
oh yeah.
I mean, you know that Albert King had to be his guardian in the first year that he was in Albert's band.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He was
That's
great too.
just shocking to me, It's so cool.
Albert, he was great too, Albert King.
And
Yeah.
then the footage of David Maxwell with Freddie King is always a trip too. You ever see him as a hippie with Freddie King?
No, he was great too, though, Freddie
Yeah.
King.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you were asking me, it's funny, guitar, I came now when I was a kid, I was playing in little rock bands right when the Beatles came out. So the first couple years I was playing like Ventures stuff,
Mhm.
Beatles, I was 12, 13. Then I got into jazz and blues in high school. So coming out of high school now is really, I've been listening to jazz, but I was coming out of, really bands that have nothing but guitar. You come rock and then blues.
Mhm.
So, I was naturally drawn, of course, to the first jazz guys that were guitar players.
Sure.
Kenny, Barney Kessel, Herb, Wes. I could hear all these guys playing great blues, but then doing all this other stuff. Like, hey, wait a minute, what's all this other, these pretty chords and
It's
everything.
blues plus.
Yeah,
I mean, it
yeah,
just goes
yeah.
way beyond the
Yeah.
blues you started out with, doesn't it?
Yeah. But then, it's funny as time went on. I mean, I love all those guys. They all have a different thing. Jim Hall, very different thing. And, Kenny, everybody. But as time went on, really all of my favorites, it's funny, all my favorites became guys other than guitar players.
Mhm.
Like, I would say, like my main favorite, even influences. Now, Kenny, I would say, is still a big influence on my playing, not as much as when I first started. But Charlie Parker would be just as big an influence on my playing as Kenny.
Right.
So would Lester Young be. And my favorites became like Bird and Lester and Louis Armstrong. I can go on and on. It was like Roy Eldridge in Illinois and Stan, Gene Ammons and Bill Evans and Bud Powell and Sonny Rollins and just all the wonderful expressive players, Buck Clayton and
Yeah, you named quite a few with vibes in the band there. Are you a fan of the vibes?
I am. Yeah. Well,
It
Milt
seems to me they're very. I saw Milt Jackson with Joe Negri and Gene Ludwig when I was living in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right at the very end, probably. I don't think Milt could carry a conversation, but he could still play.
Mhm.
I mean, he just really just didn't have much to say, but I was thrilled to be able to see who I had listened to all those years on the vibes.
Oh yeah.
It's such a great instrument, and
Mhm.
you know,
And Joe Neg, great guitar player, right?
oh, love Joe.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, he's like the Pittsburgh guy.
Yeah. And Gene Ludwig, I didn't know until I moved to Pittsburgh, but what an organ player he was.
Oh yeah, I'm not familiar with him. Huh?
Yeah, he's worth looking up. Absolutely.
Oh, that's a
But
whole different thing too. I didn't got to do a lot of that organ trio, but when I first played with Illinois, it was with Milt Buckner,
mhm.
which was a different thing. He was the older style on organ, like Wild Bill Davis,
Mhm.
But I did get to do a few gigs. They had a funky little club here, years the 1369 Club, and somebody provided a B3 for the week, and they had 5 great organists that week, and I think I did 2 or 3 of them with Don Patterson and who was the other one? Lonnie Smith.
Love Dr. Lonnie.
Yeah,
Huge Dr.
Yeah.
Lonnie fan.
Oh yeah, and I had a great down in Philly, just a weekend, a 2-nighter with Shirley Scott.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Yeah.
I worked in Philly and got to go out to Chris's Jazz Cafe a lot.
Oh.
I love that room.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, yeah.
Yeah, and actually, Ron Levy, I did a few gigs on the
Ron
organ.
Street. Now, we're all missing Fred Taylor from Scullers, as you mentioned.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
remember he had set up a dueling B3 night, and one of the guys was ill. I think he had Jimmy Smith and Jack McDuff, I think, were going head to head. Well, one of them, I think it was Jimmy Smith, didn't make it, and Ron Levy had a sub in that night, which was
Wow.
great anyway. But the B3s were head to head, all right there in Scullers, and oh wow, was that cool! I had never seen anything like it. It was. And jazz was all kind of new to me, early 20s, and going out and seeing everybody. It was so wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately New England has lost Freddie. Eric Jackson's no longer on the radio on
Mhm.
GBH. What do you think the shift in the jazz continuum there in New England is are you finding it harder to promote shows and get shows and
Yeah, it's yeah, it's not very good right now. We just talked about that. I was on a gig the other night and with a couple of the musicians and some other fans that were there, and then they were asking like, God, where can we go to hear some more music like this? And or we were talking about how almost everything I do, or where they were going, were little gigs that go on outside of Boston, like
Yeah.
this, like I'm playing tomorrow night at a club in Plymouth, and that's every Tuesday they do jazz. And last Thursday was in Bethune. They do Thursday nights.
Mhm.
And then on the Cape, and then I was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire last night. But I was just saying to somebody, I'm never in Boston because there isn't any.
Yeah.
There's not even name people. There's like no little place for local guys. Man, when I was first starting, I can't even count how many. I mean, Cambridge alone, I think, had like 8 or 10 little places. Boston had another 2 or 3. Several of them were 6 or 7 nights a week, not one night a week.
So many people would tell me about the 1369. I kind of just didn't. And the night stage, a lot of my friends played night stage.
That was a nice club too. That was a nice, yeah. Yeah, I saw a few people there. That didn't go a really long time. But they had some 1369 was there for quite a while, local guys, and then they'd bring in a few fact, I saw Kenny there. So Kenny, and they had Barry Harris, they had Johnny Griffin, and I had a gig there with Barry Harris.
Actually, I'm going to see Johnny Nicholas soon here. I'm sure you remember Johnny Nicholas when he lived in the area. And he said that he had a regular thing at this 1369, and Ronnie Earl would come down and beg to sit in with him. And he said, if you can believe it, Ronnie Earl had hair down to his waist at that time. He said, you're going to be kidding me. I'd pay $1 million to see a picture of that. But, you know, I was telling you offline how I remember you playing with Ronnie at a show to benefit Paul Rochelle's family. And that was a thrill for me to see you guys play together.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. He's great.
Now, he played with Jerry Bodwin at some clubs in Waltham. Did you play some of those clubs when you were living in Waltham?
No, I didn't. No.
Good. That's a good choice.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where they played. It might have been a Mexican restaurant or
The
something.
Rendezvous.
Oh, the Rendezvous. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I
Yes,
don't think I played.
Can't believe Ronnie Earl got married at the Rendezvous.
Yeah, I don't think I played anywhere there. Well, I was there for 20 years too.
Wow. Yeah. Now I know Uriarty's did some nice jazz for a while, but then they went out of business. But you know, Waltham's a beautiful spot. And then you moved south to enjoy your later years here. How are you enjoying living closer to the Cape?
Oh, we love it. Yeah. Yeah. We're not actually that far down. People always think Hull, Nantaskett's way down towards the Cape.
Yeah, it's not that far out of town.
No, if you go actually by the Crow, it's like, I don't know what it is, 15 or 20 miles, but it takes forever to get here. You come down, it's a long way off the highway.
Route 3A meandering.
Yeah. Yeah, 3A, and it's really unique. If you look at it on the map, it's like a little mini Cape Cod. Yeah, we're really like out in the middle of the ocean, little peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we love it. I mean, we didn't want to be right on the water anyway. It'd be like, but then when the next tsunami comes, you know.
Right, exactly.
But we're way up, but we see the water. It's great. We see boats go by and Boston Lighthouse. Yeah, we love it. It's really
That's
nice.
awesome.
Kind of a hidden gem, Hull.
It really is.
Yeah, it's not like a hoity-toity town at all. It's kind of a funky little.
Yeah,
beach
some
town.
nice clubs. You know, you can hear some music at the C Note and some other places down there.
You know, that's a nice little club too. And
Really?
there's a funky little bar. Actually played there a little while ago. Joe's Nautical Bar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a unique little place, kind of down from street level, so that you're looking up at the window and there's like sand halfway up the window, you know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's filled with all this funky old Coast Guard member, because the birth of the Coast Guard is here,
Mhm.
and the Coast Guard station's right around the corner from the bar. But it's a great little place, jukebox, and yeah.
That's a good way to you know, spend your time, is near the water and relax.
Yep.
That's why I
Yep.
moved down to Old Lyme, Connecticut.
Oh,
I just, you know, the hustle and bustle of Boston I was done with it.
Yep.
And you know, there was nothing here. I had lived here when I was a child, and there was nothing here. And now you've got the Katharine Hepburn Theater in the next town over, and the Old Lyme Inn with the jazz club in town. You know, 2 casinos not far by. So I'm never for want of any entertainment, which is good. So tell me, are there any recording plans or anything in the works that folks should know about?
No.
No, you just enjoying doing the occasional gig and making some music.
Not unless somebody calls me up and wants to record, but no, I don't really have any plan. Maybe something will come up.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it's been a little hard to keep my chops up, but I imagine you probably hear that from a lot of people too, just like the last 3 years or so, you know.
Yeah, COVID. I mean, with COVID, and then, you know,
Yeah, I mean, and
clubs going out of business.
Clubs going out of business. I mean, like around here, and as we travel around and talk to guys, you know, it was really slow before COVID. A lot of places, you know, for this kind of music, a lot of places had already closed, and then that really gave a whammy to it. And not much has come back. I mean, this is like summertime and not that much going on.
Yeah,
A lot of
it's awful.
just people were talking about the other night. They were like, "Where can we go to hear?"
Yeah. There are other
That's-
options in the digital age, unfortunately.
Oh boy.
They don't turn me on, but they do it for
No.
the young kids, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
But I'm excited to see you in Old Lyme, September 8th. It's an 8:30 show. Doors open about an hour in advance. Open seating. So there's some competition for the best seats. People can go to the Side Door Jazz Club website and get their tickets. What am I forgetting, Gray? Anything?
Let's see. I don't think so. We got a couple of great guys with me, both fabulous. Fabulous.
Now, is
Yeah.
Pam going to make it to the show? You said you
Yes.
were going to try to. Good.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I actually just played with these guys yesterday. Not as a trio, but we were part of a quintet.
Good.
Yeah, both fantastic. Marshall and Les, just fantastic drummer.
Oh, he's marvelous.
Yeah, fantastic musician, drummer and musician all around, everything.
Well, second generation, right? I mean, he's
Yeah.
just is born into it.
Yeah,
That's what matters.
his father was fantastic too. Yep, another great drummer, great guy.
Now, did I read that Les graduated at the same time that Alan Dawson did from Berkeley, or right around the same time?
Les's father? Let's see.
Was
No, because now Les is younger than me. Les is maybe 62 or 3.
yeah. Okay.
His father would have been, I guess, more Alan's age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. Is his father graduated around, or
It could be,
was
yeah.
about Alan
they were-
Dawson's age.
Yeah.
Now, you worked with Alan. I mean, I know a lot of people loved working with Alan Dawson.
He's another one, maybe a couple hundred times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everything local, weddings, boat gigs, recordings, and then all kinds of house band gigs, people coming through town. Chet Baker and Dizzy Gillespie with a big band, and Illinois Jaquette, Benny Carter, Barry Harris, and yeah, just countless gigs with him.
I heard he was a taskmaster as a teacher. Was he the same on the bandstand?
No,
Yeah,
no,
good.
it wasn't.
You made it
and
on the bandstand, you earned your bones, right?
yeah, I did. Yeah, I did hear that he was as a drum teacher, but he didn't. Let me see. I was on a ton of gigs with him. He didn't get a lot of gigs of his own. I did maybe 4 or 5 of his, where he was the leader. But he was just totally cool on those, and all the others. It was so great. You always knew it was going to be so great. You saw him rolling his trap case in,
That's
and,
awesome.
yeah, and he was such a beautiful guy too. Just the best.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I see we're running out of time because I only have a free account on Zoom. We got about a minute left. So I better let you go. Plus, I've kept you a good long while here in stories, which have been amazing. And if I can do anything leading up to the show, you let me know. And thanks for spending the time with me, Gray.
Oh, please, a pleasure, Jim.
Yeah, me too.
Really
All right.
looking to it down there.
Good deal. All right, we'll see you soon.
All right, you take care now.
All right, have a good evening. Best to Pam. Bye.
I will. Thank you.